Thanks so much for joining me this edition of Author's Corner, brought to you by KNEO 91.7 FM The Word, and I'm Roberta Foster. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Melody Carlson back to Author's Corner. It's been a little while since we've chatted, but she has now written the book Once Upon a Christmas Carol, which is published by Revell, a division of Baker Publishing Group. She'll tell you more about how to find this book and others at the end of the program. Just a little bit about Melody. She is the award-winning author of more than 250 books, including many best-selling Christmas novellas, young adult titles, and contemporary romances. She received a Romantic Times Career Achievement Award. Her novel, All Summer Long, has been made into a Hallmark movie. And the movie based on her novel, The Happy Camper, premiered on Up TV in 2023. And she's part of the population of Central Oregon. So, Melody, thank you so much for being with us on Author's Corner.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this was a novel with a little bit of a twist. So why don't you give us a brief summary of Once Upon a Christmas Carol?
Okay, well, it starts out with a woman named Carol, and she happened to have been born on Christmas, but she also grew up in a rather dysfunctional family and divorced parents and a mom who had some problems, and consequently, Carol's birthday and Christmas always ended up being a disappointment or just totally neglected, and so she kind of learned to hate Christmas. Plus, she's been working as a designer in Seattle, and instead of being able to design homes like she wants to, she ends up spending about 2 months or more just doing the design for the holidays and for very kind of entitled-ish people. Doesn't put you in a real Christmas mood, really.
Well, and I used to work for the Postal Service, and December was not my most pleasant month of the year. And so I can kind of understand when people get into a job that just kind of takes the fun out of all of the wonderful celebrations of Christmas. So we see what led to her negative thoughts about the holidays. So what did she decide to do to try to lift her spirits during Christmas?
Well, she decided to totally ignore Christmas, and she was going to do that by flying off to the Bahamas. I think she got a good deal on it, and even though she lives in Seattle, and she's flying across the country, and there's this southerly storm that is really, really a mess, and more than a storm, and then so they have to divert the flight up north, and then by the time they get up north, it is a blizzard, and she gets stuck in Michigan, and she kind of barely recollects that she might have an aunt there that she's never met, that her mom does not like, and she ends up on the aunt's farm because all the hotels, of course, are full because so many people have been, stranded in Grand Rapids. So there we go. We're off to a good start. Of course, she's probably, wearing sandals and, she's all ready for the beach, and it's just like 2 feet of snow. So, yeah.
Well, and as a person of faith myself, as I was reading the book, and you think about just the random opportunity or the random chance, or as some people would say, the coincidence of ending up at an airport where she has an aunt living nearby. And now I know this is a novel, but these are still things that happen in real life, and people don't really see the hand of God in arranging these things, do they?
Exactly. And just interestingly enough, after I wrote the book while I was taking care of my husband, and he had a terrible illness, and he ended up passing away last Christmas, which I'm not going to go into. But so this will be an interesting Christmas. But anyway, this young woman came into my life that I kind of knew her family. It was almost like she was a relative, but she wasn't. And she was in need of, like, a mother. And so she came into my life, and we made a connection. I started mothering her. And then she asked me, would I go do a beachy thing at Christmas with her? She had no idea about this book. And I had almost forgotten this book because I wrote it under such duress.
Yeah.
And the books had just been delivered. And I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, I said I can't because I've got sons that need Christmas, and we can't just, it's our first Christmas without their dad and all of that. So then I said, well, why don't you spend Christmas with us? And she was just like, yes, that would be wonderful, because she had never had a really good Christmas.
Yeah.
So then I said, and you've got to read this book. And so it's like the book was like predicting the future. Talk about God's serendipity. I mean, it was just like, you're kidding. It's just so funny.
Yeah, for sure. And, okay, so Seattle flights, nothing too unusual about the fact that it might be flying along the northern states and going into Grand Rapids. But why did you pick Michigan as the location for this story?
Well, I live in the Northwest, so sometimes I get accused of putting too many books in the Northwest. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess we could start in the Northwest. I wanted her to be someplace that was just kind of rainy and dreary, and Seattle can be like that sometimes. I mean, it can also be very beautiful, but it's not exactly a white Christmas area.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and then I just kind of imagined that she must have got a deal on the Bahamas. I don't know. It kind of doesn't quite make sense. But then I have spent a little time in Michigan. My publishers are in Michigan, and I've driven because I've had to do various things there, and driven through the countryside, and it's just kind of this charming countryside that can, turn brutal when it snows if it wants to, So I thought that's a good place to just strand somebody, like the middle of nowhere. And I want to say, who knows anybody in Michigan, but that's not really right, because I do know people in Michigan.
Well, we know that it can get a lot of snow. When I was in Minnesota for a year, I met a lot of people from Michigan. And when I was in Minnesota, I actually lived in Alaska. So we would talk winters, and Michigan outdid my Alaska winters hands down so much of the time, with the colder temperatures and the amount of snow and everything. So it really is a good place to strand somebody that's decked out for the Bahamas. So she had quite a little bit to overcome right off the bat.
Yeah, not to mention her sandals in the snow. And then, of course, the guy that picks her up at the airport after she gets a hold of this aunt is... she thinks he's her cousin. Well, he's not, but anyway, he's just, I'm sure, kind of rolling his eyes at this city girl wearing her flip-flops, and yeah.
There are lots of little twists in this wonderful story. I'm talking with Melody Carlson about her book, Once Upon a Christmas Carol. It's published by Revell, a division of Baker Publishing Group, and you're listening to Author's Corner, and I'm Roberta Foster. So Christmas can mean a lot of different things for different people, and some are just very generic and very secular. Others, such as those that are probably listening to this right now, have a Christian faith. And so you brought a little bit of that into the story as well, is the faith in Jesus Christ. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I always liked, it's a Christmas story, for Pete's sake. Let's put a little bit of the reason for the season in the book. But and I just felt like it was kind of a reawakening for Carol, and just even discovering that she had family, and discovering that her aunt has a little bit of faith, and Carol sort of does, but she's been on a rocky road, so it seemed appropriate. I just thought, why not just let her have and she's got this severed relationship with her mom, or broken, or whatever, and so, I mean, we don't we patch everything all together, but the process begins, and it kind of starts with grace. And I think grace and Christmas, to me, they just go hand in hand. And and I feel like a lot of people commonly have relation issues that just kind of rise up during the holidays, because sometimes we're forced with people we don't necessarily like. And I love that in these books I have a chance to show other sides of people and insides of people, and maybe the reader thinks, yeah, that's kind of like my whatever, and fill in the blank, and maybe there's something going on that I need to be more gracious towards, and yeah.
And for people that aren't into a whole lot of mushy love stories, there's this attraction to the supposed cousin that picks her up, but it's not overpowering the general theme of the grace and forgiveness that you talk about, learning to enjoy being with family, and those different themes that are in your book.
I can't believe I won these romance awards, and I've won several, because I don't really write romance, but I don't mind having a love story. And sometimes it's kind of like that spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
Like, so if we're dealing with some conflicts and some hard stuff, sometimes just having that person go alongside just kind of sweetens it up and softens. And I know readers enjoy that. But yeah, I'm pretty light-handed with it.
You have written numerous Christmas novellas, and so what is it that you like to, or why do you like to write Christmas novellas, as many as you have penned?
Well, yeah, I know. I think this might be my 25th one. I don't have them all in my office to count them, and it's been kind of a busy year, let's say, or complicated. But the first one that I did was my editor's idea, and she has since passed away, and she said, let's just try this. And it was probably around 2000 or earlier, probably before 2000. And at the time, it's like we didn't even really know what this animal was, and so I wrote one that was, I think it's called Angels in the Snow, but I can't quite remember, because it's been republished with different titles. But anyway, let's see how it does. And it did well, and so then it was like, then there's a second one. And I can't, it was never a plan, I'm going to write a Christmas book every year. But, being that it was also my husband's birthday, so there's a little bit of fodder there. And then I had that kind of a broken childhood where Christmas was mixed up at my house, but I had grandparents, and there's a lot of facets to the way that I think and the way that I was raised that probably do kind of lend themselves to maybe different kind of stories. And so I feel like, it's just a good story that happens to be set at Christmas time, and then we'll tie Christmas into it somehow. So it just keeps happening.
Well, and according to the information I've been provided, you're already busy writing or getting started on your 2026 Christmas novella. So does it make it a little easier to write a Christmas novella close to the Christmas season?
Well, ironically, no. I write it in the summertime, and I did already write it. And I always write the Christmas book in the summertime, and I write my summer books in the wintertime. And the nice thing about that is, so it could be 100 degrees outside, and you're in your cool studio writing, and you're writing about snow, and it makes you feel cooler, and you step outside, and then you have culture shock. Because what? The next one is called We Wish You a Messy Christmas, which is pretty funny, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, today I'm talking with Melody Carlson about her book, Once Upon a Christmas Carol. So, Melody, tell our listeners how they can find out more about all these books you've written and staying in touch with you.
Well, you could go onto any of your online bookstores, and you'll find it there. Right now, we're rebuilding my website, so it's not there, but it is melodycarlson.com for when it gets up in January. Go ask your bookstores, your local bookstores, too, because if they don't have it, they know how to order it. And then I think it gives you a connection to a bookstore, and it does me a favor, too, because it gets my books into the bookstore. So
it is good to be able to plug a local bookstore. Let's see. We've talked about what you've got coming up next and how to reach you. So any parting thoughts with our listeners?
I would wish them a happy Christmas full of grace. And I do have a book coming out in March that is kind of similar to this one. It's in a way. I'm not even trying to explain that, but it's called All Booked Up. It deals with another widow, and this book deals with kind of partly with a widow too. So, and I guess because of now I'm getting that experience, it's going to show up more in my books. But there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Again, Melody Carlson writing Once Upon a Christmas Carol. Thanks to Revell for giving us a copy of this book to talk about. And to our listeners, thank you so much for being a part of today's interview. And if you'd like to hear it again, you can now find it on your favorite podcast platform or through kneo.org. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Roberta Foster on the Author's Corner. Join me again next time.